Have you ever been waiting for a new game release, counting the days and hours until launch, only to be disappointed by a game that not only has a terrible performance but looks unjustifiably bad? In this video, I will be showing you why modern games are outclassed by games made 20 years ago, and showing you why the best game graphics you see today are not what they seem. But first, let's answer this question. What are graphics? Game graphics are the visual elements and images displayed in a video game. It is everything from character models and environments to user interface and special effects. They play a massive role in enhancing the player experience. So why were game graphics better 20 years ago? I remember over 20 years ago the launch of the PlayStation 2. Back then, the graphical jump from the PlayStation 1 to the PlayStation 2 was one of the biggest in console gaming history. It was an amazing era where games could display many more polygons, resulting in smoother, more realistic 3D models, higher resolution textures made surfaces look more detailed and realistic, more advanced lighting techniques and shaders added depth and realism to scenes, and PS2 games could render much further into the distance, reducing popping and creating more immersive environments, and many PS2 games also ran at 60 frames per second compared to the PlayStation 1 30 frames per second. And I still haven't seen anything like this since. But what I see today from modern game releases is mostly negative consensus on modern game graphics, especially for games that boast about their graphics. So why is that? There are different elements to this. I recently tried to recall an old PlayStation 1 game that I played as a kid. I couldn't remember the title, but I had a clear image in my mind. It had a dark horror vibe. I remember playing as a child character holding a candle dressed in a nightgown. The game started you standing on your bed in your bedroom. So I went on the internet trying to find the game, searching the details that I just mentioned, but I couldn't find anything. It was frustrating. Until I found a database of all PlayStation 1 game covers. And I kid you not, the first two rows, I found it. And I was completely shocked. To illustrate what I imagined, this is an AI image. This is what I had in my mind of the game that I played when I was a kid. And this is what the game actually looks like. It's insane. I was shocked when I saw this. How can my memory be so bad? To me, in my mind, it looked so real. I think this shows the power of nostalgia and charm. Players often develop a strong nostalgic attachment to the graphics of games they played during their youth. This emotional connection can make older graphics seem more appealing, even surpassing their objective quality. This nostalgia can even lead to a preference for retro-styled game graphics in modern games. Another element is artistic merit. Many classics prioritize unique art styles over photorealism. These stylized graphics often look better than the attempts at realism. Features like hand-painted textures with their distinctive brushwork, limited color palettes, and stylized details all add to their charm and artistic appeal. But isn't all of this subjective? Nostalgia in gaming is highly subjective and personal. Nostalgic feelings are often tied with the player's personal history with games, especially those from childhood. Games can evoke powerful emotions tied to past experiences, relationships, or specific stages in life. The time period and cultural context in which someone first encountered certain games greatly influences these nostalgic perceptions. Nostalgic memories may lead to an overly positive assessment of older games, potentially overlooking flaws or dated elements. All the elements that I mentioned before are subjective. So what are the elements that are not subjective? Older games are bolder and have more impactful designs, even with the limited resources they had, and there are a few reasons for that. Older games often used hand-painted textures that showcase the artist's skill and creativity, giving games a unique handcrafted feel rather than aiming for photorealism. Hand-painted textures embraced stylized interpretations of objects and surfaces. This resulted in bolder, vibrant designs that maximized visual impact, often employing limited color palettes creatively. This stylized approach can create more visually striking and memorable game worlds that remain visually appealing for longer than attempts at photorealism from the same era. This partly because stylized graphics don't invite direct comparison to reality the same way that photorealistic graphics do. Another reason for the impactful designs is the focus on artistry over technology. Artists had more freedom to create fantastical or exaggerated versions of objects and environments because they weren't limited by the technology at the time. They could bake lighting and atmosphere directly into the textures, creating a more cohesive, mood-setting visuals instead of relying on dynamic lighting, for example. Bake lighting is a technique where lighting information is pre-calculated and baked into the textures of 3D models. Instead of the game engine calculate lighting in real time, the pre-computed lighting information is stored directly into the textures, saving valuable resource power. This technique was partly prevalent in older games with limited hardware capabilities. Baking lighting directly into textures gave artists a greater control over the final look of the game. They can carefully craft the lighting and shadow details, ensuring consistency and specific mood across the game. With limited resources, older games had to be incredibly efficient, leading to bold and impactful designs that maximized visual impact despite the limitations. This efficiency in design is another factor contributing to the appeal of the older games. And you can see that with some independent developers today that try to replicate that uniqueness by limiting themselves. And you only see that with very small independent developers like the creator of Faith, for example. In an attempt to recreate the art style of old PC games, he gave himself artificial limitations like limited number of pixels, frame rate, and color palettes. With all of this, the game had a unique art style compared to all other indie games released at the time. So what about modern games? Whenever I play a new game, I feel the same problems appear, the same mistakes made, and I'm not even sure that they are mistakes at this point. What it seems to me is that while trying to achieve photorealism, developers often sacrifice performance, demanding more powerful hardware to maintain higher frame rates. This problem seems to me to have increased over the past few years since new technologies have been developed like Nvidia's DLSS and Unreal Engine's 5 nm technology. There seems to be an over-reliance on these technologies to the point that developers seem to have stopped optimizing their games. It's like devs are not trying anymore. So what do the players think of the current state of graphics of high-budget titles? Whenever there's a big game release, I always wait first for user reviews to see if there are any common performance problems with the game. I don't know about you, but I can no longer trust the recommended system requirements. I'm not sure even if there is a point to them anymore. So I just look at the user reviews, and what I see is mostly mixed opinions on video game graphics. I honestly just wish game developers today would optimize their games better. If they approached optimization the same way that developers did 20 years ago, we wouldn't need graphics cards the size of a small car radiator. So what do you think? Do you think games are objectively better now in every way? Or do you think they are flawed? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like the video and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching and take care.